Well, this podcast today is going to be a little bit different than our normal ones. I'm joined back by Kim Hogarth. She's our Move Daily nutrition coach at Move Daily Fitness and my friend. And we thought, well, she's not quite 50, but of course I'm in my 50s. She's coming on 50. Kim, this time of life is different. It's a bit different than our 30s, 40s. And we wanted to talk about it. We wanted to talk about some of the shifts that we've been seeing, not only in ourselves, but in our members, some of those questions that are coming up. It's an interesting time in our lives. And we just wanted to have a conversation about it, share some of our own experiences, what we're going through, and see if we could just maybe shine some light on this season of life and give our listeners some helpful ideas, thoughts in their own journey through perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. And just share what we're learning ourselves about ourselves. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. And hi, everybody. It's amazing to be here again to talk to you all. And yeah, I think we've seen so much the trend with the season of life we're in and the season our members are in and our community is in, with the challenges and the struggles, but also the positives about the age that we are now experiencing. And we thought it would be a great topic just to really begin to relate to some of our community and how they're also feeling. Because I kind of get the feeling we all feel the same, but we don't really talk
Yeah.
about it often enough.
Well, Kim's newsletter a few weeks ago actually hit home with a lot of people. We got so much response from that newsletter. And if you're not a part of the newsletter, please do sign up. You can find the link right on the website, movedaily.ca, under newsletters at the top. But you shared, what was the question you asked? Something like, how do you feel about being 50, or what's your favorite part? What did you say?
No, you're right. So we wanted to put a newsletter together that really talked about the positive side of this season because there's so much out there in social media, obviously, that we also talk about that's challenging around, as you say, menopause, premenopause, all the things that come with this uncertainty of life. So we were like, well, what can we celebrate that's great? And so we asked that community, our community, that. And they were super responsive, as you say. There was so much positivity. And I think that was one of the most popular newsletters we'd done, which was great.
I know we're out here like trying to give advice with all of the struggling things, but sometimes that can be, a little bit not negative, but it's like to do, to do, to do. And this newsletter, we're like, what can we celebrate about being in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond? Like what is good about this time of life? And I know for me, I was like, I feel free. I feel like I finally, can focus on myself.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I think you're right. It feels like there's so much that we want to fix, so to speak, about this season. It feels like so much changes that's out of our control. It feels like so much is wrong, so much medication we now need, or counseling we now need, or there's everything
Supplement.
we need, from weird shoes to back massages to beds that tell us when we're too hot. There's all these things that come along. I was kind of like, what on earth is all this? And I think it's really confounding as to what actually we can do that helps ourselves in the season. But then also, this season rocks. There's so many
Yeah.
great things. I mean, I know obviously, Tracy, you're into your 50s now. What do you feel like has been some things to celebrate that you found have been really amazing about this time in your life?
Yeah. I spent so much of my younger years, 20s and 30s, at home with the kids. I wanted to work. In my brain, I was going to be a career person. I honestly was. And then when I had Stratton, my first child at 26, I tried to put him in daycare, and I just couldn't do it. I don't know. I felt like I really couldn't trust people very much. Maybe that was my own issues going on, but I thought I can't do it. So I worked very part-time when Quentin could watch the kids in the evening sometimes. And I stayed home, and all of our kids, we have three, they're all 3 years apart. So I was home for like years, years and years and years, just working very, very part-time and feeling like I didn't have a career that was flourishing or going anywhere really. And then once they all got in school, I was able to, myself. I know a lot of people put their kids in daycare, and I think that's great if that works for you. But I finally was able to do that, and or when they went to school, so I was finally able to start on a career for myself. And it takes a long time to build a career, right? And For me, I was building a business and trying to figure out what it looks like to be an entrepreneur and building a company. And, it took a long time. But once my kids were sort of all left the nest and they were gone, I felt like it was really my time to shine, like to really throw myself into my work and career and sort of like make something of myself. And so that's what happened in my late 40s and 50s. And yeah, that has been so empowering because I feel like I've waited for it my whole life. And so it's been very empowering to be able to do that. What about for you? How have things shifted for you and how are things different?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because, as you mentioned, I turned 50 this September. So it feels like it's a massive year. And it's interesting because all last year I was quite looking forward to it because I'm quite proud of making it to 50. But then it kind of hit January 1st and I was like, oh no, no, no. I'm not ready now. So I think it's quite an interesting place to be, I guess, on the precipice of hitting your half century. But yeah, I mean, my story is similar, but also different. So I also have three children, as you know, as everybody knows. I had them much later in life. So I had mine in my late 30s, early 40s. And I feel like I came to my career after that, but at the same time, I was raising young kids. And I must say, I had no quandaries about daycare. They were all straight in. I was like, I'm off now.
Off
I
with
was
you.
not worried. They went straight in there. It enabled me to work and obviously to really put time in then. But I think that brings in itself a struggle that I know many of our women experience, in particular in this age, is the fact that we are so many things to so many people. So I
Yeah.
still have young kids now. Obviously, I have my career, I have a great husband, I have a house, all these things. I have obviously my family, my parents, brothers and sisters. I feel like we get pulled in 100 different directions. And I think when we get to this season, it can make it really difficult to then work out who we are without all of this stuff around us.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the blessing and the curse of being in this place, is that I'm keen to explore what I look like at 50. What does my next decade look like? But at the same time, I've got to make time to do that and understand who I am aside from all this stuff that I do, because we are so busy. And I know obviously you've kind of come into your own and your business success is phenomenal. And I think you're a shining example of what you can do, which is incredible. But do you feel like doing it at this time of life was probably the right time? Do you think you could have achieved this when you were younger, or did this fall exactly where it was supposed to do for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish that it had happened earlier, honestly. Like I look back and I'm
Oh, interesting.
like I wish so much that I could have had all of this in my 30s. Most of that is because more time to grow, right? Sometimes we think like it's too late. Like honestly, I didn't start really jumping into a full-time like career business type of thing until my late 40s. And your brain does think is like, well, I don't have many years left. But that's really not true. I listen to Gary Vaynerchuk a lot, and he talks to people of all ages. And so often I'll hear him say, 50-year-old people, men and women, you can start over right now. You could start a new career, you could launch a new business, you could grow a new platform. I mean, I feel like I'm living proof that that is true, that that can happen. But yeah, I wish that I had had this sort of success earlier in my life, just because then I would have had more time to see the fruits. I feel like I could have had it back then too. Like I felt like I had the drive, the desire, but yeah, it's hard when you have your children and not to begrudge having children. I wanted that, and that's exactly, what I wanted in my life and what I chose. But it pulls that, and this is where you were just saying, like, to be all things to all people, and we're caregiver to parents, we're caregivers to children, we want our own life and career, but I felt that very viscerally in my soul, you know, and I battled with that a lot, leaving them, wanting to do things on my own, caring for them. I don't know, what's that like for you? It sounds like you said I ushered them into daycare and that was fine for you. Yeah, what's that like for you?
Yeah, I think it's a great point because I carried a lot of guilt because I felt like that.
Mm,
So I've always been, I think it's a it's a product of my childhood because my birth mother was not a typical mother, shall we say, and I obviously had a lot of childhood trauma that I've worked through and processed. I'm still processing, but I think because of that, I am a little bit removed on the emotional side, I suppose, from parenting. Not in a bad way, like I would do anything for my kids, but I'm not one of these mums, and no judgment to anybody who is, who feels like they have to be around them all the time, who doesn't want them to be necessarily that independent, who feels overprotective of them. And again, it's parenting is such personal choice. So for me, it was a lot easier to send to daycare because I was very much the mindset, well, they're going to learn lots, they're going to have fun, they're going to be away from me, but in a positive place. Obviously, we're very careful about where they went and all that kind of stuff. But I carried the guilt of not being able to say to other mums, oh, actually, I feel fine about my kids being in daycare all day.
Yeah.
And that, I think, again, this relays a lot to what we're talking about, of the expectation about how we're supposed to feel and what we're supposed to share. And again, if we talk about the season we're in, a lot of people to me are like, oh, you're going to be 50. This is great. This is your new life, new season. I'm kind of going, but I don't know what that looks like for me. And I think one of the things I was thinking about before we were talking today is there's this expectation in the best possible way that this is a celebration. This is the new you. You're going to get to do things by yourself, discover who you are. But many women don't know what that looks like. And that can be even more scary because you're being ushered into this world of expectation that you're going to have this new second life. Your kids may be grown up, perhaps your career is flourishing, but you've got more time for yourself. But what if you don't know what you want to be, what you want to look like? What does the version of me look like in my 50s? And I don't know that. And I feel like a lot of the women we speak to also have that trepidation, I suppose, about the next season they're going into. And it's scary. And it's also scary when you don't know, because we're supposed to be in the age where we're supposed to know everything. We've got life experience, we've got knowledge, we've run all the lessons that we could possibly run, and we're supposed to know. And a lot of us don't. And I feel like we don't talk about that often enough, I don't think.
Well, so you don't know that. How do we get to know that then? Like, how do you think you're going to discover that?
Yeah, that's a great question and one I've been pondering on a lot. So I think for me, it's a little bit about, so I actually have this exercise that I'm going to do. I haven't done it yet, but I will share it in case it's useful for others.
Sure.
So in a lot of therapy I've been doing, it talks about core beliefs that you picked up from being a child. So what did you believe was the truth? What were your core beliefs about various aspects of your life as a child? And then you take that and you go, okay, this is what I believe now about myself. But what do I want to believe about myself? What do I want my core beliefs to look like? So I'll take an example just to illustrate, but it might be, well, I only receive love if I'm doing things, if I'm useful, if I'm needed in the lives of my family. Now, that is not really a core belief that stands today. They love me regardless if I don't do the vacuuming or if I don't cook the dinners. But so therefore, I want my core belief in the future to be, well, I accept love, unconditionally. And I know that's okay. And so I think if you begin to do that comparison between perhaps how you feel about yourself now and where you'd love to be, what would I like to be like? What would I like my life to be like? That can allow you to then work out, okay, so how am I going to get from A to B? Because you understand what A to B is and what is that vision of me. And the second thing is I want to do stuff I've never done before, which is slightly scary. So this is everything from getting a tattoo, maybe, which everybody is in complete shock about, which is hilarious. To going abseiling with one of my sons, to going and doing like all the, like I'm going to do a cold plunge in one of the lakes, because obviously Scotland is full of lochs.
Yeah,
they've got a sauna and a cold plunge. I'm going to go like things I've never done before, just for the experience of it. And then maybe that's going to be something that will also just be like, okay, maybe I'm a person who does this now because maybe this is what I look like. So I think it's a little bit of that deep dive and also a little bit of just trying to have fun with it and discovering what you like and, what makes you happy. This is the thing, isn't it? We don't focus on that enough.
Well, and you have to test and try things like you just said. I mean, I try to tell my kids that lots, in terms of career choice, like you have to be moving towards something. Like, how will you ever know what you want to do unless you're actually trying something to see if it resonates with you? One of the things that I'm struggling with right now is finding those things that light me up and really just make me feel alive. I feel like I'm a little bit sort of in the doldrums of the work of life, because I do have a target. I have a goal. I have a financial goal. I have a retirement goal. And so that's going on, but I feel a deep angst um, of not, maybe it's a lack of fulfillment. But as you spoke about these adventures that, you would like to test and see if that resonates with you, I feel like that is lacking in my life. And I feel like I can blame no one but myself because it's out there for the taking. Right. I just have to plan it. I just have to move forward. Like I tell my children, like just you have to, you know, make a plan, do an adventure, go out and try something you've never tried before. Listening to you talk about that, I'm like, I need to do that more. I just wonder why I don't sometimes, you know?
Well, I think in fairness, you have like hundreds of thousands of people every day, like trying to
It's
hook into what you're doing. So I
it's
think
a lot.
it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you do, and I can say this because I'm extraordinarily fortunate to know you very well, but you care about every single person in the community like I have never seen before. I have to talk you down sometimes from,
Lots.
from almost over caring. But I think it goes to show that because you invest so much of your heart, your soul, your energy into your work and to the community, is that leaves you not a lot of brain space and time to think about yourself. So I can
Mhm.
completely understand how you feel that way. But I also know that life is so short. And I think that if you're thinking more about doing more stuff for yourself, that is absolute gold. And I know that every woman who's listening to this will be going, yes, Tracy, go do your experience, go have your fun, because like you've earned it. And it's lovely to think that you could take that time back for yourself a little more.
Yeah, it is. It's very important, I think, to give yourself that. And it's something about, having those adventures. I think that we can also see what we're kind of made of. I think about going up to Zion's. I've hiked there a number of times, and there's a hike there called Angel's Landing, and you go up Scouts Landing, and it's a little back and forth thing called the Wiggles, and then you go up to Angel's Landing, and it's like almost death defying. Going up there, it's quite scary. And I remember my first time hiking up there, I was petrified, and I was like hugging the mountain so close because it's literally death on the side. Like if you fell and tripped and rolled, you'd fall to your death. Um, Not that you would fall and trip, but I think about 7 or 8 people have died going up there. Like it's in the news. Anyway, yeah, doing something like that, it lights you up. It makes you see what you're capable of. I don't know, it just kind of moves the needle on your center. And yeah, for me, I feel like if I don't have those things to look forward to, I it's not like I feel like I'm going backwards, but I'm just really not growing who I am by doing things that scare me a little. I don't know. What do you do things that scare you?
No, apart from opening up my email every day, no. I just slightly. No, I don't think I do, but I think that's really typical. I think that again, I know I keep saying the same thing, but I think it's so common for many women in our community, is we are so used to the same routines because they are the demands that are placed upon us, whether it would be a work schedule, whether it be, family, children, grandchildren, cooking dinner for everybody at 7 p.m. in the evening. All these things require us to be present in the day following that routine.
Mm,
Where is the space for us to go? I'm going to go hiking for a day. I'm
mhm,
going to go do my cold plunge and jump in a lake somewhere. Where am I going to get like all these things? We don't really have the habit of going, right, once a month I'm going to do this. Maybe that's the great thing for us to do. Throughout the year, it's almost like going once a month, I'm going to do something that either scares me or excites me. I feel like I don't want to be scared all the time, but maybe it's something that's exciting or different. And that is such a small amount of time for us to carve out. But yeah, as you say, we are pushing ourselves, we're challenging ourselves. And I think that the joy that comes up when it's something so unexpected and so wonderful is almost childlike. And I think as adults and then as people in midlife, we forget what that pure joy
yeah.
and almost fear and excitement that comes from those crazy experiences feels like. And I think we
Mhm,
lose that. And I think that relates exactly to what you were saying about we need to get this back in our lives to remind ourselves we are alive, as silly as it sounds to say. But we lose that, I think, because the routine, the demands, the
mhm,
time, the worry that we're not going to get it all done overtakes this need for joy that we should all have.
mhm, mhm. Have you ever heard that saying, the trip's the thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the journey toward whatever it is the
Yeah.
thing, and uh so it is finding that joy sometimes in our everyday activities, in our structure, in our routine. I definitely think that setting things in the future, adventures, something to move towards, that excitement that builds as we anticipate that is really important. I heard someone on TikTok the other day say you should always have something sort of planned as your next thing, as your next trip,
Mm-hmm.
as your next adventure, because you'll come home from your current one and then there's something to look forward to. And for me, that is really important, and right now I don't have the thing. So I feel it, like I said, viscerally in my soul. I feel very I don't know how to say it, but I think it's part of being 52. There's not much going else around me. Like I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
take care of the kids anymore. I don't have to cook dinner for anyone. So I think when that has all left and it's all sort of in the past, if I don't have something forward, like in the future to look forward to, I feel the mundane even more deeply. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I think we all need a purpose. And I think we can define purpose, of course, as work or as family, children. But I think there's a purpose that we should own ourselves. And that's almost like what you're talking about. You need
Yeah.
a purpose to get up and keep going because your purpose lies 5 weeks in the future and it's a holiday or it's a hike or it's a whatever it is you're going to do that lights you up. But that also, we could view that as a purpose too. That is your purpose to get to that point, is
Yeah.
to have that joy and that experience. So that makes complete sense. And I think, if anything, this is almost like a call out to all the women out there to go, what is your purpose for you? Plan it
Mhm.
in, do it, get it done, plan something else. Because again, we're not very good at focusing on ourselves. And yet this season is supposed to be the season where we return to ourselves and we are celebrating ourselves and we are doing things more for us. So I guess this is an encouragement to our community to go own that, take advantage of it, plan something, even if it's just for yourself, and half an hour, an afternoon, a day, whatever that looks
Yeah.
like that you can achieve without feeling guilty, and just plan something small and let that be your start point. I think that's absolutely excellent. And of course, I'm going to say to you, Tracy, you need to plan something as well now and share what you're going to do.
I know I'm a real bad planner, as you know, that's more your gift and skill. But if you don't do it for yourself, then who suffers? No one else except for me. So it's true. I have to do that. So you're turning 50 in
Mhm.
September. And yeah, what are you nervous about as you think forward to your 50s? Is there any sort of anxiousness thinking about this next phase for yourself?
Yes. So there are a few things that are kind of making me a little bit twitchy about it. Although by and large, I am positive, I must say. I think we'd be remiss not to talk about the physical side of aging, because I think for many of our community, that's a big deal. And also for me too, I'm not, despite my job and despite the fact that I do look after myself and I'm proud of that, I am also aging. I look in the mirror every day and I look older. That's a natural part of as we grow and, as time goes on. But it would be really remiss of me to go, yay, I'm getting older and everything's sagging a bit and everything's a bit looser. And oh dear, that's not going to, and I can't get off the floor. I can get off the floor, but not as easy as I used to. And I think that scares me slightly because it's a sign that we are not, we're not going to be on this planet forever. We are going to get older. I know that you and I talk a lot about fighting the curve and making sure we're doing that in the most proactive way. So that makes me nervous. I know I can do lots to fight against it, and that's great. I feel empowered by that, but I'd be remiss to say it doesn't make me nervous all the same. So I think that is a huge factor. I know that's a lot of what our community is doing as well. But as if you've gotten older, Tracy, do you find you've kind of found that? I know, appreciate, you have to work out all the time with your videos, and that is the epitome of the business. But have you found that something you're aware of more?
Um, Not physiologically, like not in my exercise body. Like I think here's the benefit of having trained most of my adult life is that you put on a lot of muscle when you're younger. It's like making bank deposits when you're younger. It compounds over time, and then it leaves you with good bone density, good muscle mass. So because I have continued that, dripped water on the stone, right? I feel like I'm set up in a good place in my body. for that. But the skin and the face and the gray hair and like all of that, the wrinkles, that's a different story, right? That's a different story. Here's the thing. I went to an event this last week. My friend invited me, and it was like a skincare clinic, and they do a bunch of treatments and this and that. So they started talking and presenting what they offer at this clinic. And afterwards, I talked to my friends. I talked to two different girls that were there. And the pitch is basically, here's how we can fix everything that's on your face that's wrong. Here's how we can fix it. And oh, the message just did not sit well with me at all, you know? And I'm not against, anyone's choice to do anything for themselves. I have had Botox in my forehead. So everyone's choice is independent and it's their own. But even that, I'm like, why do I have to, straighten the wrinkles that are there and that every woman has? And this is part of aging. I really, it felt really bad to hear, here's everything you need to do or you could do to change what you are naturally going to be looking like. I don't know. I didn't like it. I'm like, that doesn't sit well with me because who I am and what I'm aging like, that's exactly how God intended me to look like and age. And why is there something quote unquote wrong with that needs to be fixed? And yet I'm like, okay, public figure, my face is like, there's videos and photos of my face every single day on the internet. Is it okay to have wrinkles? I think it comes down to, again, am I okay being who I am and what I look like without having to garner a 10 out of 10 from the audience, And I'm sure people who don't care about that would just say, yeah, that you're looking fine. It's fine. But it's like, what do other people think about what I look like? And it's letting go of that. It's like, that doesn't matter at the end of the day. That's not who you are. So there's like a battle with that. I have to be honest. It's a little bit of a battle for me.
Yeah, no, I get that completely. And I think although, of course, your situation is unusual in the sense that you are in front of, thousands of people pretty much every single day, we can totally relate that also to our community because
Yeah.
so many women talk to us about, well, I saw myself in this picture of my family and I didn't like, my tummy, or I didn't like my arms, or I look fat next to my friend, and I think that comparison or that fear of
Mhm.
being judged is with all of us all the time, whether it be in our own brain or whether it be coming from those around us who we think are thinking these things. And as I say, I know with you, your community, by and large is so positive, but I know some people are unkind. And that's painful when that happens. And likewise, we have someone in our community who might hear things behind their back or might hear comments or see things that just make them feel less than.
Mm.
And then that driver to fix, as you've said, what we feel is wrong is so sad because we should all feel acceptable in our skin. I know we're not going to love everything about ourselves. I don't think it's right to assume we're going to, but to accept ourselves and to accept aging, I think is super positive. But it is really hard when there's that constant comparison or constant fear of being judged. It's really, really scary.
Mhm.
But I must say, from my perspective, and as a member of the community and someone who works for you, I feel like I can share both. But I think you really epitomize what is important as we age, and that is being, comfortable in your body. It's using the tools we have, like exercise, like healthy eating, like, the good but not excessive supplementation, all these things. But also, yes, things like the tweakments that, make you feel more confident in yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think you really strike that balance beautifully of showing up really well, but also of doing it in a super healthy, pragmatic way, which is a great example, I know, to lots of our community, I'm sure.
You wrote a good little blurb article to our members the other day about comparing yourself to others and how important it is just to not do that. It's so easy for us to look at someone else and just say, "Oh, I'm not like her. I'm not as good as," and it doesn't serve us on any level, right? It makes us envious or jealous, and but but owning who you are, what you look like, working with that. I'm not just saying like, oh, this is how I am. This is the body I have. I'm not going to do anything to make it stronger, improve muscle or improve my health. But there is a point of just accepting where you're at and saying, okay, I'm not going to compare myself to others, and especially others who are younger and who have no wrinkles and who have more muscle, right? I think it's important to even just say, okay, where I'm at right now compared to probably most of the population my age, I'm doing pretty darn good, right? If I'm working out, trying to focus on healthy foods, you're probably doing like 99% more than the majority of the population your age. There is something called a T score and a Z score when it comes to bone density. The T score evaluates your bone density compared to an ideal specimen in her 20s. But your Z score evaluates your bone density compared to someone else your age, right? And that's more, I think that's more appropriate that we just kind of say, where am I at right now? Where's baseline? What's a good measure to be at? And I'm not talking about what you look like, but I'm talking about bone density and muscle mass and fitness level, right? And then say, okay, I'm doing pretty good compared to other people. Let's keep this going, right? Let's keep the trajectory of this toward better health because yeah, that's as we age, that is going to be a crucial component.
Yeah, I agree completely. And as you know, I do one-to-one coaching sessions with our community. I'm bookable for that, which is great. And so often the women I talk to, there's such a sadness in my heart because they say, I don't look like I was when I was 25 and I hate my body, or I'm fatter than I was before children. So I'm using
Yeah.
very direct
Yeah.
terminology, but this is how they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
And so often I've obviously read about them in our, we do a pre-consultation questionnaire and I've read about them. And I look at them and I go, if I had you in a room with 99 other women of your age, you'd be in the top probably 2%. If we're talking about health, fitness,
Yeah.
probably leanness, all these positive aspects. And they kind of go, oh, I didn't even think about that. And
Yeah.
so often we look back to how we were when we were younger, and that's the comparison we draw. But we were completely different people then, mentally and physically. So it's like a losing game. You're never going to be able to win your thoughts against that. But if you think, as you say, about actually our community and how much effort they make for their health and how much that is compared to so many other women out there, very sadly. And it's brilliant, but we don't see that. And I think that's such a good lesson, actually, almost out of this podcast to go look at how you are today compared to everybody else and actually celebrate how much you already do. And for sure, going on to improve other aspects is great. We never want to stop learning or growing or developing, but celebrate who you are today because you're most certainly way further forward than you're giving yourself credit for.
And to, if you're comparing yourself to anyone, just compare it to who you were yesterday, right? And that can keep us moving forward in the right direction.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I think it would be really lovely if we rounded out with perhaps one thing that we are celebrating in this decade that we're in. So perhaps something from both of us, maybe that we just love and maybe a little bit frivolous about what we like in this season that we're in. So I'll go first just to give you time to think about it since I've sprung the question on you. So I love the fact that I can be really strong now about what I want to do and what I don't want to do. Like I have boundaries now, and I never used to have boundaries. I've never had boundaries. Now I can put boundaries in place, and there's a lovely buzz of confidence that comes with doing that. I think about going, actually, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do this because this is what I want to do. And I love that about this age because I almost feel like I'm a little bit untouchable now.
Yeah.
Like I've had my babies, I've got my career, like, I can say no and there's nothing anybody else can do about it.
Yeah.
And I love that. And it's a bit scary. So I wouldn't necessarily say I'm coming into this really raring to go. But I think when I do it, you feel that confidence in yourself going, why did I not do this earlier? It seems so silly. But I think for me, that is one thing I'm loving about being in this season is I can say no and I can put boundaries in place and I can own that with a confidence that I didn't have before. But what about you, Tracy? What do you think is one of the best things about this season?
I would think, I mean, for me, because I had not relied on my husband's money, but that, I didn't make my own. I didn't. I was, you're using his to do shopping, to do anything. I had never bought a car. with my own money before. And this last year, it'll be a year in June, I bought my first car, my very own car at the age
That's
of
amazing.
55 with cash. And
Mm-hmm.
that
Wow.
was really empowering. It
Mm-hmm.
was. I was, because I had never done that before. Like I said, I didn't have a career sort of in my 20s and 30s. So it all came a lot later in life for me. But to be able to yeah, do that, do what you want because you've worked hard enough to get to a place that now it's accessible. It was empowering. Just I think it was empowering because I saw that how much dedication I put into my job and into growing this company, and it worked,
Mm-hmm.
and it paid off. It worked because there's lots of days and weeks and months where you're not like you don't think it's going to work and you want to give up and you want to throw in the towel and you're like, no one signed up for my course. That's great. No one bought this. Awesome. Like now, how am I going to move forward? But you don't give up. You just pivot a little bit. You keep pivoting and stay in the pocket and to see it pay off, I'm like, okay, when mama said hard work pays off, that was true. Yeah, to have the freedom now within that feels empowering based on the fact that I stayed in the pocket. So I'm proud of myself for that. That feels good in my 50s to say that.
No, you more than earned it. And I know everybody would absolutely agree with me on that point. So, and that's amazing. I love that for you.
Well, folks, thanks for listening today. Thanks for joining Kim and I in our conversation about what it looks like to flourish in your 50s, 60s, 70s, beyond. We hope that you can take some nuggets away from here today and remember that don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. And that's who we work on. That's who we grow and build and become the person that you were designed to be. Thanks again for listening, Kim. Thanks for being the guest today. I appreciate your insight. Again, Kim did mention this, but she does a one-to-one bespoke coaching in nutrition. So if you have any questions or thoughts or how do I get past this? I mean, the feedback, Kim, that you've gotten from your sessions from the women is incredible. You're so kind, you're so thoughtful, you're so insightful. And they really have gained so much insight from meeting one-on-one with you. So book her. She's amazing.
Thank you, Tracy. That's brilliant. Yes, and I'm open for bookings, which is great. And it's lovely to get the chance to work one-to-one with our ladies. It really means a lot. So here to help.
And just before I end too, remember we do have our March Melt Away Challenge coming. If you're listening to this in February, it starts March 1st, and it is a full month of fitness, wellness, and nutrition. We've got workouts, we've got coaching, we've got special guests. Kim and I are both doing coaching sessions within it, a private Facebook group, and an opportunity really to melt away all of those things that no longer serve you and empower your own menopause journey. And yeah, we'd love to see you there. So links are in the description below here. Check that out. And as always, go move daily now in your fitness, wellness, and nutrition. And we'll see you all in the next Move Daily Talks.